surely in one of these there will be something to break the slump. It's inevitable, right? Like, there's a law of averages. People who do numbers tell me that there's a law of averages. Tell me that it'll work. It's Leanne, and I would love to say welcome back to a new video, but instead what I am saying is welcome back to my little pit of no reading. That is correct, I am in a slump. The last really big slump that I had was in 2020. We all know how that went. That was 6 months of not reading anything followed by a breakdown. I would dearly like to not repeat that process. If you have seen my most recent life update video, then you will have seen that I have been through some stuff over the last couple of weeks, and that has meant that reading has really taken a back seat. Again, reading is usually a hugely escapist activity for me, of course depending on the genre. I read some dark stuff sometimes. But recently all I have managed to do is binge watch TV and listen to the same 36 songs on my very shameful Spotify on repeat list. Seriously, that list calls you out. The one saving grace in all of this is that when I felt myself really desperately sliding down that slumpy hill, I picked up a favourite author to try and stave off the inevitable that I could see coming in the distance. So right now I am reading The Night She Disappeared by Jewell, and it is giving me all of the things that Jewell usually gives me. Complicated characters, multiple POVs, different timelines, creepy secrets, odd locations. It's just a perfect little Jewell package. But the problem is that it's been such a great reading experience that I'm still worried that when I finish it, the next book that I pick up will send me back into a slump because it just won't be as good. And so today, my friends, we are going to try a chapter of many of these books, probably not all of them, but a couple, and we are going to attempt to find the books that I will go on to next, and the books that I will be doing my next reading vlog on. It's high stakes here, mates, okay? You need to live up to it. But before we get into the books that I'm going to be testing out today, I would first like to thank the sponsors of today's video, Star Chef 2, otherwise known as Leanne Do Like a Cooking Game. But Star Chef 2 is not just a cooking game, it is a cooking and restaurant simulation game. She's cozy, she's goal orientated, and she is tasty. In Star Chef you will start out with a tiny little diner, the diner that you have always dreamed of, and you will grow it into a world-class restaurant. There are so many different themes of restaurant that Gordon Ramsay would not know what to do here. But it's not just about the cooking, it is also about the growing. We are making our own organic produce, baby. There are constant live events to take you all around the world. Some of them will be a complete surprise, exotic locations that you had never even thought of, and some of them will align with our favourite festive period. And if you, like me, like to play with friends and sometimes beat them in a gentle and competitive way, then you can add your friends in this game and play player versus player or tournament style. And then you can have a chat and, you know, tell them how much better your restaurant is than theirs. As a person who is absolutely not a chef in real life, the thing that I love the most about this game is the amount of information that you get about the dishes. There's historical facts, you get to know about why these dishes are culturally significant, and I learned a lot about the nutritional facts of vegetables. Download Star Chef 2 with my personal tracking link down below and live your chef dreams while you're also helping to support my channel. Okay, so why this particular set of books? Well, if you follow me on my Instagram here, you will probably have seen that our lovely friend Amy came to visit very recently. Amy runs a lovely Bookstagram channel. I will link it here and down below for you to go and check her out. And we had an amazing 2 days together just eating all of the good food and doing all of the fun bookish things. And in amongst all of this, Amy and I were trading book recommendations and we decided to be bookishly thrifty. We split some 3 for 2s and some offers and we got ourselves some fun books. Fun books that is that the other one said, here, read this, you will like it. And so I thought it might be fun if we tried a chapter out of every book that Amy had curated for me in this little stack to see if we could find my next slump busting books. So there are 6 books here over a variety of different genres, and I am aiming to find 3 that I am going to read next, and I will vlog that experience and let you know how it goes. Alright, so let's do a breakneck run through these titles. The first book that I've got is the Moonsteel Crown by Deas. Now, this one has a little bit of a story attached to it because I made kind of a rookie mistake. Amy and I were in Transreal Fiction, which is solely a tiny indie sci-fi and fantasy shop in Edinburgh, and I wanted to try and pick up something that I had never heard of before. I didn't want to look on Goodreads, I didn't want to Google it, I just wanted to put my hand on something and go, I like the sound of that, I will pick it up. And I picked up this one, which is The House of Cats and Gulls. And this is actually book 2 in this series. Not gonna lie, this is one of my biggest bugbear with sci-fi and fantasy books. There should be something somewhere on this back cover to indicate that this is the second book in a series. I mean, ideally, I would like something on the spine, but I also recognise that sometimes covers change mid-series, and so putting something on the spine is not always going to be entirely reliable. But I want at least something on the back to say, and the adventure continues. So this one is about 3 characters in a fantasy world, and I get the impression from the back that this is a fairly grubby fantasy world. We're not exactly grimdark, but we're not also in something as light and bright and beautiful as the realm of the Elderlings. Tagline says on the back, the Emperor of Aria has been murdered, the Empire is in crisis, and dead men walk the streets. We are following Mila, Fings and Seth, who are 3 members of a band called the Unrulies. They are led by kind of like a gang leader, and they're really just trying to make ends meet. But then the Unrulies get hired to steal something. There is a heist element to this one, and they discover that the thing that they have stolen has thrust them right into the heart of all of this political intrigue, where they would really rather prefer not to be. Next up, we have got something that is completely out of the box for me. This is Duck Feet by Percy, and this is actually Scottish contemporary fiction. I was very intrigued by this very, very recognisable Scottish council house on the front, and when I read the back it said that it was set in the mid-noughties in Renfrew and Paisley. I promptly ran over to show Amy because Amy is very much a Scottish literature lover, and she said that one of her friends absolutely adored this and is just passionately up for throwing it at everybody who wants to give it a chance. And I haven't read any straight up Scottish fiction that deals with like Scottish identity in quite a while. This one actually says on the back, Percy has given us a Scottish Derry Girls, and I was like, so this one begins with 12-year-old Kirsty Campbell and her friends as they hit high school. So they're leaving primary school, they're hitting their first year of high school, and it follows them all the way through to sixth form. So from like ages 12 to around about 17. And the interesting thing about this one for me is that because it was a signed copy in Toppings, they had like the wrapping thing that they have on it to protect it, and I couldn't actually sample any of the first chapter. And it is all written in Scots, like intensely colloquial local slang Scots, and I am so excited. Next up, I have one with a very familiar cover to me. It is a cover that is basically just half of my aesthetic. I'd read the start of the synopsis a couple of different times and I had the gist of it, but I had popped it on my wish list and it was kind of just on a back burner. And then this was the first time that I actually saw it in person and read the blurb all the way through, and I was like, fine, it's clearly fate. This is A Lesson in Vengeance by Victoria Lee. It is, of course, Dark Academia. Look at that cover. This one is about Felicity Morrow. She has taken time away from the Dalloway school and has only just returned after the tragic death of her girlfriend. Ghosts and witchcraft are very much part of the Dalloway school's background, but Felicity is very much trying to stay away from dark things now after her girlfriend died. She feels like some of it is entirely her fault and she doesn't want to meddle, but it's really difficult when the occult is around every corner. And then Felicity meets Ellis. Ellis is new at the Dalloway school, and Ellis has no such misgivings about the occult. The first sentence of this one absolutely gripped me by the throat too. It says, 13,000 feet above sea level, you can drown in air like water. Give me more. This is definitely a good potential follow-up for the Lisa Jewell book. It has the same kind of like creepy overtones, but it's also like leaning more into that supernatural, almost fantasy area, which is where I can feel my brain is starting to go. Next up is one that I absolutely would never have picked up on my own. If Amy hadn't have put it into my hand, I just wouldn't have looked twice at it because the cover is so meh. This is She and I by Hannah King, and it still has the topping signed first edition thingy mahoogie and the plastic on it. I haven't bothered to take it off yet. To be honest, given the state of the Lisa Jewell hardcover that I'm currently reading, I might just leave the plastic on until I've finished it as, you know, a protective layer. I would never request excess plastic on my books, but as it's there, I may as well take advantage of it. This one is a thriller, and it's a thriller about two female friends, which is something I absolutely love. Two female friends or two sisters are just, oh, they are my jam in thrillers. And this one is looking very, very promising. The blurb is incredibly short, so I'm just going to read you it because it gave me all the feels. It says, Keely and Jude are closer than blood. They share everything. Clothes, secrets, drinks, and blame. So when they wake up after a New Year's party to find Keely's boyfriend stabbed to death beside them, they agree to share one more thing. The story they'll tell the police. But who is their story really meant to protect? As the murder investigation begins to send uncomfortable ripples through their small Northern Irish town, will the girls find that there's such a thing as sharing too much? This has also got multiple perspectives and multiple timelines, which, give me a little bit of misdirection. Multiple timelines that interweave is one of my favourite things in thrillers, so here it is. Next up is one that's nothing like anything else in this stack. I have flirted with picking this book up a couple of times, but I've never actually had a physical copy in my hands to peruse it, and it was a staff pick when I walked into Type Wronger Books, and as soon as Amy saw that I had it in my hand, she was like, you need to read that. That is all the things about memoir that you love, all of the dark, twisty things about memoir. And given that we already know that we stan this author a lot on this channel, and that I have read other non-fiction memoir pieces from them, I was sold. So this one is In the Dream House by Carmen Maria Machado. I really love these stripped back simplistic covers for their books, even if like fluorescent colours is not usually my thing. So essentially this is Carmen Maria Machado's memoir about the domestic abuse that she suffered in her queer relationship. I have a few memoirs that deal with domestic abuse on my shelves, but I have never seen anything that deals with it in a queer setting. The back of this one says, she casts a critical eye over legal proceedings, fairy tales, Disney villains and more, infusing everything with her characteristic wit, playfulness and openness. Sometimes I find that when I don't know what I want to read, a memoir often hits the spot in a way that nothing else does, so this one has a good chance of making it into this stack, I would say. And then finally, the last book that I have picked up will probably come as absolutely no surprise to you guys, because you know that I recently read Hex from Jenni Fagan and I absolutely fell in love with it. Head over heels in a messy way, kind of in love with it. And so I found Panopticon by Jenni Fagan on the shelves in Rarebirds and I was like, it's mine. I actually already have Luckenbooth by Jenni Fagan on my shelves, but I kind of want to work backwards through her backlist. This one is about Anais Hendricks. She is a 15-year-old girl and she has found herself finally, after a string of offences, in the back of a police car and on her way to a young offenders home called the Panopticon. However, it says on the back that although Panopticon is a home for chronic young offenders, the social workers are as suspicious as its residents. But Anais can't remember the events that have led her there or why she has blood on her school uniform. I know absolutely nothing else about this one, even though the general flavour of it is giving me like Greek vibes, possibly a retelling cloaked in a disguise. So there were all of our choices for me to try a chapter from. I'm now going to get myself some reading snacks and a cup of tea, and I'm going to come back to you and I am going to sample these with you. Okay, we are back. We have got tea and we have snacks and we have a change of location. This is my bedroom. We actually redecorated it mid last year and I've had quite a few plans to film videos in here in the past, especially when that chronic illness life kicks in, and so maybe I'll take this as inspiration to do that. Although I will point out we usually have a wall hanging on this big bare wall and it's being washed. So anyway, I'm going to see if I can get you an angle that's comfortable for both of us for me to read. Actually, technically it's not both of us, technically it's all three of us because Esme has joined us now. She's evidently very invested in whether I get over this book slump or not. Okay, I finished the first chapter of this one, which was only like 8 pages long, and it did really well at introducing quite a lot of information in quite a short space of time, and actually in a way that was really engaging. We were mostly in one character's head, although we did get to meet another one, and this character kind of gave us the political lay of the land. It's very cold, they're going into like the coldest part of their winter, and through his struggles we figure out why that is like a really bad thing and why it causes a lot of fighting and things, because there's a lot of people starving and fighting for food. I really liked the tone. I laughed out loud a few times. I wouldn't call it Pratchett-esque. I feel like that is sort of code for this is a humorous fantasy author, in the same way as, oh, it's Agatha Christie-esque as a code for this is a potentially cozy mystery. But I did still really like it. My only complaint at all was that some of the information that we were getting was from like a conversation that the character was having with himself in his own head, and a lot of those bits were kind of like in large italicized portions where it's like the character speaking directly to himself, and I felt like we could have got the same information and still stayed in third person. It was kind of one of those moments where it was like, well, that could have been an email. You could have just given me that in a sentence rather than the whole paragraph. But I think that's probably something that I could get past for the rest of the book, because at least the sections in his head are hella funny. So this one is going on the maybe pile. I feel like this one could maybe grab my attention enough to drag me out of Slumpville. And next up we have got Duck Feet. I should probably start looking at how long the chapters are before I actually go into this. Okay, this one's maybe only like 6 pages or so. We'll see how we go. Okay, I am absolutely in love with this. I've read a few books written in Scots over the years, but I've never found anything which has rung so true as the dialogue in this one. We're entirely in Kirsty's head, and at first she's just this kind of like ball of sarcasm and determination, which is very, very relatable to like the Scottish teenage experience. And the first chapter is really just about her having swimming lessons at school and trying to convince her dad that he should also go and take swimming lessons. And at first it was familiar, and then it was funny, and then it was really heartwarming in a way that I just can't put my finger on. This one's not going on the maybe pile, this one's going on a definitely pile. So let's see, we've got a definitely, a maybe, and then a maybe not, will we call it? So the next one that I've got to add to my piles is A Lesson in Vengeance. I've already read the first page in this one because it's like a little sort of prefacey bit where it's talking about drowning at high altitudes in fresh air, or thin fresh air, I guess. Ooh, we've got a map of the school. I never noticed that first time around. I love maps. A slightly longer chapter this time, maybe like 10 pages or so. Let's see where we go. Okay, so this one is a very different vibe. I was not expecting what I got. We're very much removed from that first little preface where she's like on a mountainside thinking about drowning in air, and we are back at the first term when, what's her face? Felicity. So we're following Felicity, and she's coming back to school early before anybody else gets there, and she's very much trying to like get her thoughts together and wondering how she's gonna like survive the semester with the knowledge that her girlfriend Alex is not coming back to school, that she's dead, that a horrible thing happened sort of like in the back of her head. And there's a little bit of ghosty stuff in here. There's a lot of leaning on like literature for dark academia. The writing is very engaging as I went on, but I'm not gonna lie, I did struggle in the first couple of pages to really grasp everything, because we were very much talking about the house and the history of the house, and you know, like how the house was built and stuff like that. And it took me a couple of times reading that page to like let those paragraphs go in. But then once I was in there, I really enjoyed it. So yeah, I think again, coming off of a thriller, this one would probably be a good place to go. It's got some of the same kind of feel without being too much of another genre to make the leap. So I'm also going to put this one in my maybe pile. And then before I do anything else, I'm going to make myself another cup of tea. So I'll be right back. Okay, so this one is not what I expected at all. It's like significantly more ominous than I expected. The atmosphere is way darker. I was expecting, because it was about like two young friends, for the two of them to like, I don't know, have a chance to settle in with us first before the main event happens, but very much no. They wake up and the main event has happened, and then the second perspective is one of their mums getting this like really horrible feeling and then looking out her window to the house where both of them were staying over for New Year's as ambulances and police cars pull up. So that was not where I thought this was going. This is like really readable prose, kind of like standard thriller prose. It's descriptive, but it's not overly so you can really get through it quite quickly. And the sections are quite small and the writing is quite big, so I think this one would be quite a quick read, which might actually be like an appropriate thing for pulling me out of a reading slump. And I really do want to know what's going on with it, but I have 2 more books to go and I don't know if I want to commit. Okay, this one's also going on the maybe pile. So I've got 2 more books to go. The definitely pile only includes Duck Feet right now, which I was very much not expecting. The next one that I've got is In the Dream House, and I don't really know how I'm going to do a sample of this one because everything is in like tiny little vignettes. So I might do like maybe like 4 or 5 of the vignettes and then I'll come back and let you know what I think. Okay, so I've read quite a few sections of this one, and as I expected from Carmen Maria Machado's other non-fiction, it is very arresting, it's very confrontational in a very casual way, and I feel like it's definitely going to be the kind of memoir that I am going to adore. But for right now, I'm putting it on the no pile. And that I'm doing that is not actually because of the topic of the book, which is violence within a queer relationship. The reason that I'm putting it aside is because there's already been, in the 15 or so pages that I've read, there's already been quite a few allusions to death. Not directly, but in a kind of existential way, where we're thinking about like what happens afterwards and, you know, when we're gone and stuff like that. And they're very throwaway mentions, which I'm sure aren't really a huge sum of the parts, but I am not in a place to be thinking about existential death crisis right now. So I'm going to make a no pile, and that one is going to go in the no pile, which means depending on what happens with this last one, which is Panopticon by Jenni Fagan, I will either be adding this to the yes pile, or to the no or maybe pile. If I add it to the no pile, it means I have 3 things to choose from in my maybe pile. If I add it to the yes, it means I only need to find 1. So we'll see how it goes. Okay, so I read a fair chunk of the first chapter of this one. It's actually more like a section than a chapter. So I stopped a little bit in. And I'm also going to say no to this one. I'm quite surprised that I'm saying no to this one, to be perfectly honest, especially with how excited I was to read another Jenni Fagan. And it's not that there's anything wrong with it. In fact, everything is very right with it. It's incredibly creepy. The head of the young girl that we're in, who is going to the Young Offenders Institute, is very, I don't know, I can't put my finger on it. She's definitely an unreliable narrator. We're not sure where we're going with it. I don't feel like this is one for a slump. This isn't one that's going to read really quickly or like push me through it. It's one that I'm going to need to sit and spend time on and actually use my brain for. So I'm also going to put this on the no pile. So that leaves me with duck feet on the yes pile, and then 1 or 2 actually, 2 of these to go on that pile. My instinct immediately says to put A Lesson in Vengeance by Victoria Lee on, because even while I was reading those other books after this one, I kept thinking about this. I kept coming back to it. So I think that that's definitely going to be a yes. And that leaves me with either a fantasy, The Moonsteel Crown, or She and I by Hannah King. My worry really, if I'm going to be honest, is that I'm not going to be compelled to pick this one up anytime soon, even though I really, really enjoyed it, because it's kind of like so far fun fantasy, and sometimes I find that picking up sort of like amusing fantasy is not something that I make like a big priority. And so I'm worried that if I don't read it now, it might be a long time before I pick it up, particularly in my current slumpy state. However, out of the 2 of these, I think this one is the one that I'm more compelled to read. It's also shorter. I think it's only just over like 200 pages. Yeah, it's like 280 pages. And I feel like because of the slump, this would be a better book to read for now, which perhaps makes this risky business. It maybe means that those 3 books are for another vlog at some point in the future, although that's a very weird combination. But I also think that this one, coming off of the back of Elisa Jewell, is probably going to be a good idea. It's another thriller. It's another one that reads very easily, and realistically, I'm already quite invested, so yes. I'm being absolutely plagued by battery issues today, so we are back at my desk. But here we have it, guys. Here are the 3 that I will be reading. So we've got Duck Feet by Percy, then we have got A Lesson in Vengeance by Victoria Lee, and then we have got She and I by Hannah King. And I don't know which order I'm going to pick these up in, I'm not going to lie. The order that I had them in was kind of appealing, but I think it's all gonna hinge on how I feel after this one. Whether I need something like creepy and atmospheric, or I want something else pacey, or whether I want something that's like a complete change. I have really enjoyed the experience of filming this video today. This is a very different way for me to pick books. Usually I'm either picking them to like a crazy idea of a TBR, or I'm mood reading my way through, and I feel like this is somewhere somewhere between the two. So there we have it, guys. I'm going to take my tired, achy body and my makeup, which is now all over my face, and go and pack some Etsy orders before I finish off that book. But I hope you have also really enjoyed this process of picking books with me today. If you have enjoyed it and you'd like to see me do this again, please leave that feedback down in the comments below. As always, if you have read any of these books, or if you're interested in picking any of them up because I have talked about them today, then please let me know that too. And any recommendations that you have for anything that you think might bust my slump, please leave them below too. Don't forget to check out Star Chef 2 with my link down below, and I will speak to all of you really soon. Bye! Now, because I've talked about all of these books today, does that mean that I don't have to keep them on my desk for a haul? Because that would be nice. Although, do you ever do this thing in your head that I do, which is like when I have a stack of books and they're new, I end up associating them all together, the way that you like associate the items that you get for Christmas together before you put them away in like their disparate places? Is that just me? That might be just me. Okay, fine.